Hi, welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I am with a super cool, super special machine. The owner of this bike is Art Corsetti, and he owns and operates Blue Mountain Cycle in Marysville, Pennsylvania. And I'll put the phone number up here for you guys. But he is a tremendously good fabricator and custom bike builder. This bike is actually a 1979 Yamaha SR500, and Art calls this the TT Special. And it was kind of inspired by the single-cylinder bikes that used to race at the Isle of Man, the old BSAs and Manx Nortons. And it just features from front to back. Everywhere you look on this bike is custom. It has been lightened, it has been modified, it has been fabricated from new. It's like a piece of jewelry. There's just such craftsmanship everywhere you look, and nice touches and nice finishes. This actually has a gas tank from a Suzuki GT750 Water Buffalo. It also has the front brakes from a Suzuki GT750 Water Buffalo, and so those were designed for a much heavier bike. So this bike is actually designed, Art builds race bikes based on the SR500s, and this bike was actually designed to race, and kind of during the process it was coming out so nicely that it no longer is a race bike, it's more of a show bike. But it just showcases so many different aspects of what Art does. Everything from fabricating the exhaust to, even the sprocket has lightning holes in it, and the fasteners are lightened, and just it's so much custom work. So I'm going to have Art come in, and he's going to explain some of the different details that he's done to this bike to get it to this point.
This build started out as it was going to be a race bike for the track, specifically a long distance endurance racer. That's why the large capacity tank and the solo seat and such. But it ended up not going to be a race bike after it started the process of building it, because I kind of got carried away with some of the features, making them too nice to slide down a track. And I decided to make it more of just a nice street bike. But I always had the idea to make it as light as possible, weighing everything, anything that was made of steel, try to make it out of aluminum, exchange it for a lighter component. The motorcycle originally was equipped with heavy mag wheels. So now we have lightweight aluminum rims with stainless spokes. It was converted to drum brakes front and rear. Originally it had one disc in the front, one disc in the rear, and it's been converted to drums. The front is a powerful 4-leading shoe brake. There's 4 brake shoes, all are active. There's 4 cams to control them. All bearings, brake shoes, cables, everything's new. There's nothing left over from 79 except for the frame. And the frame's been heavily modified. It's been reinforced. Everything not absolutely necessary to make it go down the road has been shaved. There's no Bondo in the frame. It's all metal work. All the paint is paint. It's not powder coat. The swing arm is a chrome moly rectangular section with reinforcements built in. Very rigid, very light. It's over length, about an inch longer than stock, which makes these bikes handle a lot better than they did stock. Gets a little more weight on the front. All the axles are chrome moly hollow to save weight. The axle nuts, like here and on the front wheel, are aluminum to save weight. If it's made of steel, it's stainless in the hardware department, and otherwise it's aluminum, like the covers here for the steering bearings and the top yoke nut, the captures here for the handlebar dampers, everything is aluminum. I believe the bike weighs about 285. I weighed just about everything as I put it together. These bikes weighed about 360 pounds dry stock. This one weighs about 285, so it really adds up. Even things like the nuts and bolts to hold the gas tank down, that's aluminum washer, aluminum bolt, and the hardware to hold the shocks on is aluminum. Spacers for the wheels are aluminum rather than steel. The spacers between the wheel bearings are aluminum, and they're neck down in the centers. Any little thing to save weight. The torque arms for the front drum are aluminum rather than the steel that was originally used on these brakes. These had steel fenders front and rear originally. These are aluminum. They're like weigh about as much as a small bag of potato chips. You got the obligatory fly screen. That's aluminum. The rear sets here are rubber mounted as they were from the factory, but instead of all this stuff being steel, the nuts, the bolts, and the damper captures, they're all aluminum now, saving a lot of weight. Of course, the sole seat, you got rid of the heavy steel seat pan. That's fiberglass, very light. Leather seat, brass buttons. I like brass. It makes a nice contrast. It's a pretty color. There's a few brass touches on it here and there.
Now,
and,
what have you done to the motor of the bike? Have you done modifications to bump up the horsepower on the motor?
Yeah, a little bit. The motor's all new internally, all new bearings and seals, of course. The cylinder head's been ported and polished. It's got a 36 Mikuni that's had some modifications done to it for improved airflow. Exhaust is custom made. It's a stainless large diameter pipe with a very free-flowing muffler that's very light, aluminum, and stainless heat shields, of course.
And you fabricated that all yourself?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And in the motor also, it's a 10-to-1 compression. Wanted the motor to be smooth running for long distance rides. The handlebars are fully adjustable. They're very comfortable for, it's more of a sit-up ride, but they're adjustable. They can swing in an arc like this. The handlebar can rotate, of course, and they can slide up and down about 2 inches. So I can make them lower if I like. But this is a good position for me. They're chromoly steel, fabricated. Same kind of coating on them, same kind of plating that they use on guns. It's an industrial bluing process. The design and styling was taken from the old 50s and 60s English big single road racers. I like that styling cues. I tried to use them as much as possible, so it's sort of like a resto mod in a sense. Kept the handlebar isolators because it is a big single. It's an old school type engine that doesn't have any counterbalancers in it. Rubber mounted foot pegs, the handlebars, and of course the seat. You can't see that, but the seats are called rubber mounted, just as the original Yamaha seat would have been. So it's all tries to isolate the rider from any vibration that the engine has because it's an unbalanced single. Now this was been rebalanced, the crank's been rebalanced to make it as smooth as possible, done to a 50% factor, and it's very smooth running, and the 10-to-1 compression also helps that. It's up from 9-to-1 stock, so it adds some acceleration, but it's not so much that it adds vibration from a bigger thump, so to speak. Another thing to help it run smoother, singles have that once every 360 firing impulse, so they tend to sort of bang, and if you don't keep the R's up, you can get a lot of shake in the chain, a lot of chain snatch. So on this bike I've made a chain roller here, little ball bearing chain roller, but it's fixed. It's not spring loaded, and where it's put at, the geometry sets, this is all the chain slack it needs, and it keeps that chain slack constant all through the travel, up and down. So that helps the smoothness too. You don't have to have a loose enough chain to accommodate all the travel. It doesn't take any maintenance. You don't have to worry about the spring breaking or tension or bouncing up and down. It's fixed. It keeps a constant tension, and it makes the chain and sprockets last longer, and it gives you a smoother ride. And this hub it's got a cush drive in it, so that helps too. That keeps your transmission in good shape, makes a more comfortable ride, and everything's been done to decrease unsprung weight. Like aluminum sprocket's been drilled, and as much as possible, that sort of thing. Aluminum chain guard. Up front, that giant drum brake doesn't really help unsprung weight, but it's got brakes like a disc brake bike. It really stops hard. It was meant to stop a bike that weighed much more than this one does. It really does work well. In the front here, this is the frame is actually an oil tank. This you fill the oil up here and check it. This is it's a temperature gauge. So it tells you what your oil temperature is, and it's also the dipstick for the oil tank, which is the large diameter backbone up under here. This is also the oil tank in here. You drain your oil right here, and then there's an oil line right here, goes under the motor, up behind the cover to feed the oil pump. So Yamaha originally put a steel bash plate here to protect this oil line. So if the tire would kick up a rock and bust the oil line, you'd be in big trouble for a couple reasons. You could seize a motor, obviously, but if you broke that oil line, it's directly under the bike, would go right onto the back tire. So Yamaha put that bash plate on. It's a good idea, and but to save weight, this one's made of aluminum, and it has some stainless screens in there to let air flow to help cool the oil. It's a little bit of a built-in oil cooler, I suppose, and it still stops the rocks if you catch any. And the head's been cut for decorative purposes, but it also increases the surface area to help cool it. There's a velocity stack in here from the carburetor back into the air box. It has a good air box. The screens on the side of the panels are where the air comes in, so they actually act as a filter, but there's a large filter in the air box, and the velocity stack is several inches long with a nice internal taper.
So Art, if somebody sees some parts on this that they like, or they see, if they say, hey, I would really love to have that swing arm on my SR, is that something that you can do? Do you have patterns and stuff to make new parts that are like you have on this bike?
Yes, I do. I have patterns for everything.